When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Baker's, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Baker's worth it every time. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use, but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
Hit my snooze alarm for the 27th time. Just don't feel like going.
Matt, we are back with another episode of Weird Algorithm discussing Bad Hair Day.
Yes.
This particular song, Callin In Sick, it was recorded during the first session of Bad Hair Day, along with Everything You Know Is Wrong. There's only one thing on the Wikipedia about this song, and I want to read this verbatim because I find it so funny.
Great.
It says, Calling In Sick is a style parody of music popular in Seattle, Washington, most notably grunge.
Yeah, well, you know, we have talked about this sort of in passing over the last couple weeks, and I think it's really interesting. There's like a real debate online and even, I don't know, I guess between us, although we've only like glanced on it, about whether or not this is a grunge parody or a straight Nirvana style parody. And a few people have said Nirvana, and other people have taken real offense to that and said that that's not the case. And I'm fascinated by that thought process. So I'll let you take it from there to start.
I can understand why people would say it was a Nirvana sound parody.
Yeah.
In the sense of, you know, grunge is a very weird genre where every grunge band sounds, I think, dramatically different than the other grunge band. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, you're never going to mistake an Alice in Chains song for a Soundgarden song, for a Pearl Jam song, for a Nirvana song.
Yeah, there's a lot of connective tissue there between these bands, but they also do have pretty distinct sounds.
So if we're talking about it being a grunge style parody, then this is most definitively the Nirvana version of grunge. And it also has, you know, Nirvana more than any of those other bands really played with that Pixies quiet, loud effect. The guitar riff kind of feels like it's, you know, maybe like a little bit of All Apologies, a little bit of like Lithium, like that, just kind of like a weird like plucking. I think the problem with calling it a Nirvana style parody is, if that's the case, it is a very bad Nirvana style parody.
Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting way to think about it. I don't think so.
Because I couldn't pinpoint what other band I would say is being a reference point.
I would say that I think that this is I think this is Nirvana more than anything else.
Yes.
I think that he probably did pull maybe a little bit from other things. The guitar riff, the opening of this song, like, to me sounds, I feel like without a doubt, he is taking, it's his version of the guitar riff from Come As You Are.
Okay, I can hear that.
To start the song. I think that is what it is. He's doing the drummer is doing sort of, Bermuda is doing those sort of like rim shot, like stick on the side of the snare drum thing.
Yeah.
Which also kind of sounds like the verses of Lithium. I also think that...
this is going to be wildly out of left field, but as we're talking about it, the guitar riff also, to a certain extent, stepping away from Nirvana, and I don't think that this was a reference point. I don't think that the timing works out.
Yeah.
It almost also has a little bit of like Nada Surf Popular happening in there.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because Nada Surf has that dern, 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 dern.
Sure,
dern,
yeah.
dern. And this is like a similar, but it's definitely more complete of a riff than Nada Surf's riff.
Yeah, like, I would be stunned if he had pulled this from Nada Surf.
I don't even think the timing works out. I think both those albums were 96.
Right?
So
it probably doesn't.
Yeah, but
interesting. But yeah, I hear Come As You Are. I hear Lithium. Especially for Lithium, the bridge bit of the song, the
Yes.
I can do anything I want to, reminds me of the I like it, I'm not gonna crack.
Yeah.
You know, the bridges feel very similar to me. Yeah, I mean, and I think, okay, so here's the thing. Just in terms of it being a Nirvana style parody, I think it probably is, and I don't think it's a bad attempt, but I also think one of the funniest things about Nirvana, or why this is not the most compatible with Al's writing style, is that, like, Lithium is a legendary song for having it has so little. The chorus of Lithium is yeah.
Yeah.
Is Kurt screaming yeah.
Yeah.
And Al can't do that comedically. I mean, actually, it just made me laugh thinking of it. He could do it comedically. I don't know, but he chose not to. He chose to write these lyrics for the song. So I feel like that's a weird, like, it's hard to hit that same marker while keeping his jokes there. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't.
All right, I'm gonna throw
Nirvana's writing style is not compatible with it in the same way as so many other artists he's done this with.
I'm gonna throw a wild theory out there. So strap in.
I love it. Already,
Because
I love it.
why in 1996 would you do a Nirvana style parody, right? Like Kurt has been dead for 2 years at this point. And we're pointing out all the things that he got wrong if this is a Nirvana style parody, right? Like, it's like he's missing all these things. What if this is a little bit deeper than that, and this is a style parody of all of the post-grunge bands that came up after Kurt's death that didn't quite get what the special sauce was that made Nirvana work? So it's like, it's almost mocking the idea that all of these other artists think that Kurt's thing was that he was angsty about something stupid, and like just pushing that to the craziest degree. And like, its intention is to slightly miss the mark on being a Nirvana style parody, because it's kind of mocking all of the bands in 95 and 96 that were also missing the mark at being a Nirvana band.
Well, that is a fascinating theory. I highly doubt that that's
I
the
highly
case,
doubt it
if
too, but I'm
honest
going
with
to
you,
put
Matt
that out
Kelly.
there.
But it's a fun thought. I mean, I think that so to pull it back to the lyrics, because there's something that I do really like, he's doing something here that I love, honestly, which is like all of the angst, right? So this grunge music is known for being so angsty and like, you know, these, or like also very slackery. This was like, I think this is an important term to throw around. Oh, just side note before I go down this road, in terms of why he does this parody in 1996, or this style parody in 1996, I think it might have to just be as simple as we know, Off the Deep End to Alapalooza was a very, very quick turnaround.
Yeah.
And maybe this was just his first actual opportunity to try this.
I mean, this was the first song he recorded, so maybe this was also sitting around from like 93 or 94, possibly.
It's possible this was started around the Alapalooza sessions and just wasn't quite ready in time.
Yeah.
And this was the first opportunity he had to actually make it happen. I also would say, again, a little bit pushing my awareness of the music world at this time in my life, because I was still quite young when this record came out. But despite it being 2 years since Kurt died, I mean, Nirvana's
music was unescapable.
It
Yeah,
still loomed really large in the
Yeah.
world. You know, it's not like people had moved on. It was a big, big deal still. So I don't think it was as out of place as it might be now.
Yeah.
I think it probably did still feel, relevant
Yeah.
at the time. But back to the lyrics, yeah, the idea of like all of these Nirvana songs and all of these grunge songs about like just sort of like, you know, just over it with the world in general. And this is such a like, so many of Nirvana's songs lyrically were so like hard to crack. You know what I mean?
Well,
like we
that's
actually talked
what-
about it a little bit.
That was
in
the
Smells Like
mystique
Nirvana.
of it, right? Like
Yeah.
it was like you can't. And I mean, I don't know how true this is or not. We could talk about this for decades, but I mean, the rumor was for a large chunk of Nevermind, the lyrics were almost essentially made up on the fly with what fit the melody line more than what
Sure.
made sense. Like,
Yeah.
which is how
But
you get
those-
lyrics like "My mosquito, my libido."
Yeah.
Like.
And maybe he did have some real deep, I think when we did Smells Like Nirvana, we talked about this. It was like people have analyzed those lyrics for now decades and have theories and ideas of what it all kind of means. And maybe it means nothing. Or maybe it's more of a tone thing than anything else. That's a weird element of songwriting that is hard to verbalize, that sometimes it's not actually about the words. It's not actually about what the words mean, but it's about the way the words sound.
Well, I mean, isn't that like what Sigur Ros's entire career is based on?
There are loads of bands that do that. Most of those bands don't hit the sort of popularity levels that Nirvana hit. That's a real, like, it's hard to do that and have that much commercial success because you're entering the art world then a little bit too deeply. But yeah, Nirvana's, but despite the fact that Nirvana had these sort of like opaque and cryptic lyrics to their songs, people still felt like they really understood, and people still related to this idea of like, I'm over everything and this world is not like for me in so many ways. All this sentiment that was like goes hand in hand with the grunge movement. And Al choosing to take a song like this and write it, make the subject matter so not cryptic and so relatable to the common man. Like, this is like him taking what should be this like obtuse thing and then just making it the most like straight ahead. Every single human being who's ever worked a job in their life can identify with this song.
Well, let's ask the big question, man. I'm going to put you on blast. Mm-hmm. Have you ever faked sick to get out of work one day?
I mean, sure, but not in a very long time. Can I tell you?
Because you and I are like freelance. We can't really, we're just, what do we call it out, as sick from ourselves at that point?
Like, okay, so when I was a teenager, I worked for a little while at the public library. Yeah. And I would put the books back away when they were returned. A page, they called it. Then I briefly had a job at Radio Shack.
Okay.
I definitely called out sick from those jobs on occasion. Not that often, but on occasion.
What I think is really important about this particular song, right, is this is a very specific calling in sick kind of day. Like I feel like the more common one is like you had shit planned and you were out of personal days, so you're going to fake sick so that you can go on a. This is before we had this terminology. He's taking a mental health day.
A mental health day. Yeah. I was just going to say that is, you know what? You got to give it up sometimes, because this is, I credit to the younger generation for coming up with the mental health day. I don't think that was, I don't know if millennials can take credit for that.
Not at all.
I feel like when I was a teenager or even a young adult, if I said, like, you know what, I really kind of need a mental health day, I feel like I would have been laughed at.
100%. But that's what he's described. Like, we start off, he hits the snooze alarm for the 27th time, just doesn't feel like going to work. He's going to call his boss, going to hack and cough and wheeze, swear he got some strange disease. What's that little twerp going to say? But then we get into like what he's thinking he could do with his day, and it's like, I could shine my pennies, clean my lava lamp, spend all day in my underwear watching Ernest Goes to Camp. I could sit and count my hair, burp my Tupperware. I'm not busy now anyway. So here's I don't know if you've experienced this. As we've just expressed, you and I, based on the life decisions we've made with our careers, don't really get mental health days or calling in sick days because we're kind of our own boss. What he's describing is the weird, calm, euphoric feeling I have when I'm actually genuinely sick and forced to lay in bed for the day. And I'm just like, man, this is actually pretty great. Like, I was really sick a week ago. I watched the whole first season of Friends and just like fell asleep throughout the episodes, and it was like the best Saturday I've ever had. Like,
so I love that you just took that angle on it, because I was gonna say that like there's something about this song that I find like really sad.
Yeah.
Because there is some real, I totally agree with you, by the way. I feel the exact same way, and sometimes for people like us not trying to change, like people who work jobs where you can call in sick and there's minimal consequences, then that's great. No judgment at all. I was going to say, for me, even aside from the freelance side of things, it's very difficult for me to justify if you're in a band, like if I have a band practice, if I am sick and I can't go,
you've ruined it for 6 other people.
Nobody can work.
Yeah.
It's not like anything continues without me, or any of us really. I mean, occasionally it's like, oh, if one of our several singers is sick, we can do something without them. But if I'm not there, it's very difficult to get anything productive done. So that hangs over me in a lot of ways, and it makes you want to push through and not do that. But the idea in this song that this guy is calling in sick to do nothing.
Literally nothing.
I mean, there is a real like sort of existential quality to this, about like he would rather shine pennies and burp his Tupperware. By the way, I just right away, burping your Tupperware and watching Ernest Goes to Camp are two glorious time capsule references.
Oh boy,
for this moment in the 90s. I feel like we could have a whole side conversation about the Ernest movies.
Yeah, not my preferred Ernest movie. I'm definitely more.
No. Who's Ernest Goes to Camp? I mean, it's fine, but that's not yet.
No, it's either Scared Stupid or Goes to Jail. Those are the top dogs.
Scared Stupid. I saw Scared Stupid as a kid.
It's scary.
It's legitimately scary. I remember being like embarrassed at how afraid of that movie I was.
I can explain this to you though. I'm not sure if you ever knew this. Do you know who designed all of the trolls for that movie?
No.
The Chiodos brothers.
Oh, really?
Do you know what movie they had just done the year before they did Ernest Scared Stupid?
No.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
To save money, they repurposed all of the clown body molds to be trolls. If you look in the background, you will see like 5 different trolls that look identical to the clowns in Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And I think that subconsciously really makes that thing get into like the internal mind of a child, is like that these, not only are these trolls like kidnapping kids and turning them into like wax statues, but like also underneath have a creepy alien clown face. Like it's a fucking wild movie.
I just remember like that was, I mean, what I actually have to double check here really quick. I'm going to check and see what year that came out.
I want to say it was 90 or 91 maybe.
91. Okay, so I don't know how old I was, because in 1991 I was 5.
Yeah.
And I probably was older than 5. But it was a kid's movie. I had seen another Ernest movie, and then this was like at the library. It must have been rated PG, I think.
Yeah, they all were.
And I was like, oh, and my mom was like, oh yeah, of course, like kids, that's fine. This will be fun. And it was so frightening.
Yep.
And I just remember like I couldn't believe how scared I was watching it. And I was like, this is crazy.
I feel like that's our entire generation. You talk to any person who's in their late 30s, early 40s, and they have some emotional scarring from Ernest Scared Stupid that like none of us are fully ready to explain or talk about. But like it did us in.
I also do think this is where we're touching on, and this is definitely a tangent, but we're touching on a part of what made, I think, our generation have a lot of real horror movie devotees in it, because it was this weird time where movies came out for kids that were legitimately scary.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't even have to like do the thing where you watch something you weren't supposed to.
Let me ask you, do you have, there are 2 that stick in my brain very clearly. Do you remember specific kids movies where you like shut it off and had to walk away because it was too intense?
I remember, if we're talking about movies that I saw as a kid that scared me, and specifically because I technically watched.
Yeah, I would say kid-focused movies.
Yeah, kid-focused movies. I mean, when I was a kid and I saw the Poltergeist movie, that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
That was, and again, that is not even particularly kid-focused, but it's important to note that these movies were not R-rated. They were PG movies.
They were PG movies.
They weren't even PG-13, which at the time, like, what is PG? Like, if you're older than 8?
Yeah.
Is that what they suggest?
And yeah, and Poltergeist, I believe, is PG because it was before the PG-13 rating existed. Mm-hmm. The PG-13 rating came around in 84 or 85 because of Gremlins and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Yes.
Those 2 movies were deemed far too intense for kids. But because they were both produced by Steven Spielberg, who is a family film director, he basically campaigned that there needed to be another rating in between the PG and the R to distinguish those types of movies. And then I think in 85 is Red Dawn, which is the first PG-13 movie.
There you go. Well, so Poltergeist is a big one, but then for more obscure ones, The Witches.
That was one of my two.
Starring Angelica Houston.
Yep. The second that they took their faces off and turned that kid into a mouse, TV was off, and I didn't see the rest of that movie until college.
The Witches was a big one.
So scarred from it.
Very, very scary. And then there was also one, I just had to look it up. It's actually slightly older. It's from 1980, but a movie called The Watcher in the Woods.
Oh, yeah.
Which I also remember seeing really young, and it really distressing me. But then it's that wonderful, we're now just talking about horror, which is like, that's the thing, is like, as much as it scared me, as much as like turned it off and I couldn't finish it, I then became obsessed with it and just like loved it so much and wanted to, like chase why this movie got such a reaction out of me.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
The biggest one for me is the last 10 minutes of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Where basically it's right around when Judge Doom, his eyeballs turn into daggers and explode out of his face, and then he gets ran over by a steamroller, and it was so intense for me. I had to have been 5 or 6 watching it with my cousins, and I ran out of the room screaming, and it was probably a good 4 or 5 years until I saw the last 10 minutes of that movie, because it scared me so badly.
That's another great example. A more mainstream, like Poltergeist, like a movie that was really popular that I think a lot of people saw.
Yeah,
that
we
was
were
like,
at my grandparents' house in the living room watching
Yeah.
that as a group of cousins.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And there just was not like, scaring a kid was, I don't want to seem like an old man here, but I do think there was a funny thing of like, at a certain point in time, scaring a kid was like,
way more acceptable.
Do it.
Yeah.
Go for it. It's okay. You can scare this kid. That's fine. Like he'll get over it. He'll be okay.
I agree.
And I feel like that has, I mean, maybe it's coming back. I don't know. Like these things come in waves and cycles and stuff, but it definitely feels like I can't remember the last time I saw like a kid focused movie that had that level of like legit horror elements to it.
No, I think that's very fair.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Baker's, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Baker's worth it every time. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be.
91 Donkey Lane is a magical apartment complex that contains immense power, but lacks intelligent inhabitants.
What is happening?
I'm getting texts.
Why are we getting a lot of texts?
People found out what we did.
Oh, dividing Mike Myers into an infinite amount of tiny Mike Myers?
Listen to 91 Donkey Lane for free on Spotify or your favorite podcasting app. More at 91donkeylane.com. See you there, you donkeys.
I got a lyric we have to talk about, which is the end of the end of the last verse. Like you said, this is a sad song already. But I think it's this line where he says, when I'm sick of taking abuse, I just make up a lame excuse. Freedom's just 7 digits away.
Yeah.
That is a deeply upsetting lyric to me.
This is some real dread and some real existential crisis in this song about your position in the world.
Speaking on that specifically, though, do you remember? I mean, again, I think we both said it's been many, many years, probably over a decade. since I last had to call in sick and fake it.
Yeah.
Do you remember the dread that would run through you being like, are they going to know? Like, are they going to call my bluff on this?
Yeah. No, for sure.
For sure. It is stressful to do it.
It is. And it's like, that's the other part of it. Like, depending on what you're doing. And I think there's also just guilt. Like, at least for me, even on the jobs that I cared about less. It's not to say I didn't care about those. I mean, Radio Shack I did not care about.
Yeah.
I don't need to. They don't exist anymore. But the West Side Public Library does still exist, and so I will say that I did care about that job, and I felt guilty doing it always.
Yeah.
Because I felt like for sure I was making some sweet old lady work harder that day.
Yeah.
Because I was just bailing on it. But
the main place that I called out sick of was the late night cafeteria at Villanova University.
Ooh.
And I never really felt too bad because we had like a staff of 14 people there. Like I was like, we're usually overstaffed. It's fine. But even then, I still used it very sparingly. I remember I will never be hired there again, so I'm fine telling this story. I had put in my 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And they had asked me, I put in my 2 weeks because I was moving to California. And they had asked me to stay until the end of the semester. Like I had put in my 2 weeks to be done just before the end of semester.
Yeah.
And I agreed to that, but then stated I have another job the last week of this semester working at a bookstore, so I can't be here that week. And then they scheduled me that week anyway. So I called out sick the last 3 days that I was supposed to work there. And they would call my bluff every single time, and I'd just be honest and be like, I don't know what to tell you. Like I laid out very clearly like this plan.
That's, I mean, I don't think anyone could fault you for that one. That
but yeah, now I'm on the do not hire ever again list, which I mean, boo-hoo, I won't be able to work the late night cafeteria at Villanova University in my 40s. But
if someone's listening to this and you work for the food department at Villanova, get your act together over there, all right?
Come on, get my name off that list.
Get Matt Kelly's name off the list.
We'll do a free live event at Villanova.
He gave his notice. Don't be petty, Villanova.
Yeah, it's a stressful move. All right. Are we ready?
I also have to point out, because I just realized we skipped it at the beginning of this song. 27.
Oh, yep. 27 shows up again.
Al 27 hit my snooze alarm for the 27th time. We're starting to develop a good healthy list of the 27s at this point. But yeah, Al's favorite number 27. I also love, in terms of the I don't think Nirvana would use these exact words, but I like the lack of comedy in the bridge of this song. The I can do anything I want to, I'm invincible now.
Yeah.
I'm on fire, baby. I'm alive. Can you hear me, world? I'm alive.
Yeah, it's almost the most positive thing you could ever have imagined Kurt Cobain screaming. Like, I think that's the comedy of it, is that it's so optimistic.
It's so optimistic. But then, the comedy of it, if anything, is that it's that I'm alive in between talking about, like, going through his Tupperware and just staring at the sun and trying not to squint.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, this is a weird, like, it's oddly sad. I'm listening to this and I'm thinking about another song he has about just work, being Dog Eat Dog.
Yeah.
Which is another song
Dog Eat Dog is way more successful than this one, though, in every way.
I like Dog Eat Dog a lot more than this. I would straight up chalk that up to the
Talking Heads.
The Talking Heads side of it, as opposed to Nirvana, but also Dog Eat Dog was making a more ironic point. Like, Dog Eat Dog is about someone climbing the corporate ladder despite the fact that it's useless to do so. Like, there's a tragedy. And I guess both of them have a tragedy to them, right? The tragedy of Dog Eat Dog is, like, you show up every day. It's the opposite. Hey, now I'm getting there. These two songs are opposites from each other. Dog Eat Dog is about showing up every day and putting your best foot forward for no reason. To no end. You'll never see a benefit from it. You will work your ass off and do the best you possibly can, and it does not matter. And in this song, you blow off work. You choose not to go because you just don't care at all. And it is to no end.
To no end.
There's no upside. There's, like, it's not like anything at home is better. The idea, you could look at it as a tragedy, the fact that this guy actually thinks that this is better than whatever he did. We don't know what this person is, what their job is. But the fact that they think that this is preferable is a grim look at their life.
All right. Yeah, I agree.
Really, really grim. So that's the funny thing. Like, I love when Al can be just so... It's rare that he is severe like this. And maybe it might just be me. Maybe plenty of people listen to this song and hear it as a more just funny thing. But to me, this is like, I feel some dread when I hear this song. Well, and it's not not in a bad way, although it probably will impact my rankings a little
well, bit. Let's talk about the rankings right now, because now I can say what I've been wanting to say for a while.
Oh, finally.
I hate this song. I've never liked this song. I have never been a fan of Callin In Sick. I've discussed this in...
Hate. Matt, stop. I think that's the first time you have ever used the word hate
about an Al song.
Show.
Yeah,
about an Al song.
Which is weird because I'm not going to rank it the lowest on the originals, but when I think of this song, this was the point right before next week we're going to get Alternative Polka, which we've already recorded the episode, and I've told this story in next week's episode, but I'll give the brief version of I didn't know if I was a Weird Al fan listening to Bad Hair Day for the first time until I got to Alternative Polka. And this was almost the nail in the coffin for me. Like, this was almost the point where I was like, I don't know if I am into this at all. And I have just, like I said, I didn't know how to feel about Everything You Know Is Wrong, and I came around on it, and now it's like my number one Al song. Calling
Cavity
in
Search.
Yeah, like Cavity Search, it's like not my highest ranked song. I feel like this is one of the few Al albums that we talk about where I think the back half is incredibly impressive to the front half. But Calling In Sick, I am going to have in my bottom 5.
Wow.
I'm actually putting it just below Traffic Jam and above Buckingham Blues. So my bottom 5 are from worst to best. Gotta Boogie at my dead last, Buckingham Blues, Callin In Sick, Traffic Jam, and Such a Groovy Guy.
Wow. I did not expect that. I really didn't. And even when you said at the top of the episode how you didn't think it was a particularly successful style parody, but I still did not expect that. I mean, I do think that's fair, especially, as I was saying with all of this stuff, like from a kid's perspective, like I actually don't know why I liked this. I think that if I'm thinking about like my experience with this record as a younger person, we talked about it a bunch in Everything You Know Is Wrong and how that really like shaped my musical taste later in life. I think this whole record, you had more music knowledge going into your Weird Al phase than I did, I think, from what I'm hearing. I had so little, like I really did not, I had no connection to modern music that was even remotely removed from top 40.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was all, if it wasn't on the most pop radio station on Long Island, I did not hear it. And so this album for me, even when it wasn't funny, was this kind of like fascinating look at all these like
different genres. Yeah.
This was a strong possibility. This was the first time I ever heard music like this.
Which I think that could make a huge difference. Yeah, that I could see that making a huge difference. I mean, I'll say this right here. I hinted at it last week on Cavity Search, but I feel pretty confident in saying like this I think is the worst track on Bad Hair Day. It's definitely, to me, the worst original track on Bad Hair Day. But that also has a lot to do with, I think that this might be one of the most impressive collections of original songs that Al has ever put on an album, because like Everything You Know Is Wrong is great. And then coming up on the show, we've got like Since You've Been Gone, I'm So Sick of You, I Remember Larry, and Night That Santa Went Crazy. Like those are all in their own way just like absolute heavy hit home runs. And I would also say that this is the only original, and honestly maybe even amongst the parodies, I don't know, we'll see, but as far as the originals go, this is the only one that feels like it's something we've already seen Al go down the path of before. Yeah. Whereas like everything else, he's doing They Might Be Giants. He's doing like a barbershop a cappella song. He's doing an Elvis Costello song. He's doing this extremely violent, gnarly Christmas song.
Yeah.
Like, this song just kind of feels like, why would you do this again? Like, I feel like everything he had to say about grunge, he had said so perfectly in Smells Like Nirvana, that this really does feel like it was this old track and they just needed 12 songs for the album.
Yeah. Well, I disagree a little bit, which is fine. I think that as a style parody of, I'm just going to keep saying Nirvana, maybe people will disagree. I would love, side note, for any of our listeners in the Facebook world, wherever you talk to us, I would love to know if there's another like grunge song or another reference point
that we should be listening to.
We should be listening for this song. I'd be curious to know what it is.
It could change my mind, honestly, but probably not.
I'm going to say it's for sure Nirvana, specifically a couple songs on Nevermind. And I think that they do a pretty good job, like, of making this sound real and like an actual, like, I think they nail the vibe. I really do. I think that it hits the mark of what I was talking about with Everything You Know Is Wrong, about it being a, like, using some of the tricks without stealing anything. And I think it's a solid riff. I like the chorus riff a lot, and with the after every lyric, that do 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 do, like those little like licks and stuff, I think are good. Yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite either, and it's going to. I agree with you that it is the weakest, I think, original on Bad Hair Day. It's my least favorite original on Bad Hair Day.
Yeah,
but I don't have a problem with it. I think I'm going to put it.
All that's telling us right now is that it can't be higher than 4 on your rankings.
There's no way. No. It's going to go up here. It's lower middle, but I'm going to put it, as per usual nowadays. I scroll up and I find a song that I can't in good conscience put it above. And on this day, that is going to be Mr. Frump. So it's going to go right below Mr. Frump and just above Young, Dumb, and Ugly, which I actually think is a really good position for it, because I think Young, Dumb, and Ugly as the hard rock style parody I like less. I like this more than Young, Dumb, and Ugly.
You have a nice little bucket here of Callin In Sick, Young, Dumb, and Ugly, and When I Was Your Age, which all kind of feel in a very similar ballpark.
They're all hard rock parodies, but comparatively, like, as much as I actually think Callin In Sick, if we're talking about Callin In Sick, Young, Dumb, and Ugly, and When I Was Your Age, you're right. I didn't mean to do that. That's a fun little cluster there. They're all hard rock, somewhat generic hard rock parodies. Now I'm contradicting myself and calling it generic instead of Nirvana. But we talked about that as it being like a genre study.
Yeah.
Right? This hard rock genre study. And I think that while Callin In Sick is arguably the least funny of those three,
it's the most successful.
It's the most effective. Yeah. And the most successful, and it gets the best. I think it's the most well done and gets the best sort of like reaction out of me when I listen to it. Yeah. I feel good about that spot. I think that's right.
All right. Well, I already said it, so there's no need to be coy. Next week, join us as we talk about alternative polka.
Polka.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.